Well, Andres, it's a pleasure to welcome you again. Andres Pi Andreu, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you, Nora. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Always enjoy talking to you. And you know, Andres, there are many things about imagination and energy that you bring, and I really have referred to you before as a fire hose of a man. I just love that you just have so much that you bring, so much energy and so many insights. So, you had written to me and you used a quote that I think you said was from Einstein that logic will get you from A to B, but.
Yeah, imagination would get you everywhere. Yeah.
And why does that appeal to you? Tell me about how that touched you.
So, well, from the beginning of time for man, imagination was uh, their first language. Actually, they didn't talk. The first Homo sapiens, and they used the imagination to communicate, and that was through, for example, drawing pictures or using, mimicking and all that paralanguage
Hmm.
they used to communicate. So basically, I think imagination was the first basis of language. So in creativity, it's close related with imagination because, of course, some people think it's the same thing. It's not, but it's close related. And the best way to use our imagination in nowadays world is, of course, like combine it with language, and then you get, a way to communicate and to apprehend the world as it is. And the thing about language acquisition right now, it's that if you know only one language, you know nothing about your own language. I mean, you can know the patterns, you can know the grammar, but if you don't have any comparison to a different way to communicate in the world, because every language is has not one but many cultures communicating the same language, like English language, Spanish, or how many cultures are or Spanish-speaking countries, but we don't have like a point of view if to appreciate the extent in which your language allows you to communicate and to be effective in that and to use your imagination and your creativity to achieve things through your language if you don't know another one. And that's the thing I think is the biggest advantage of being bilingual or trilingual is that gives you that perspective. You get to a better sense of your own language. So if you the limits of your language is the limits of your world, you know so and also the acquisition of, for example, concepts that are uh, uh, abstract concepts and things like that. It's necessary to have a better grasp of your own language, and it's if you have more than one language, it's better for understanding of you know abstract concepts that in many occasions they are not formed by language of description. They're only abstract. So a different language is always a different vision of life. And if you are multi-language, I mean, if you are bilingual
Hmm.
or more, you have different visions of that, and that gives you, you are like closer to the, let's say, truth, even if there is no total absolute truth, because it's that depends on your circumstances and where you are. But you can never understand. Uh, I stand by this one language until you understand at least two. No?
That's an interesting statement. You cannot understand one language unless you understand at least two. From some of the reflections that you have just spoken about, the perspective.
Yeah, I mean, uh, many people in the past, monolingual have done like great work. The thing is that the world in which they lived, it was like that world was completely different of nowadays world. Now, the circle of your friendships. I'm talking about a teenager or a middle schooler or uh, your your friends, your online friends, which is the new socialization, is a mix between the digital and and physical. They could be a friend that lives in Ireland. The other is Korean. You know, my kids. You know, they have play friends, playmates, on they are for 3, 4 different countries, Latin America too, and they
Interesting.
share a common language. And in for example, in their case, they speak Spanish and English the whole time. Some of them they are not. They are bilingual. I mean, almost all of them are trilingual or bilingual. But at the end, what the language they share, for example, in English or Spanish, it's not made of grammar or structure. It's simple a different language, a language that has to do with the um, platform in which they interact. They already have preconceived terms, and they then language and culture uh, collide or are the same, because what
Hmm.
they really have is a new culture, you know. So
Uh-huh.
and they are a classic example of a mix of what language and culture is. So for them to be imaginative, and use their creativity, of course they interact at that level, and the world is going in that direction. Okay, it's we live in a world in which we already are meta-humans. We are people that are closely attached and in connection with devices that make us 1,000 times more. Uh, I mean, I would say superhumans than 50 years ago. We
Interesting.
were, so, and that world is only going to get, more complicated and more powerful. Humans are gonna be more powerful as individuals, not only because how they interact with each other, but how they interact with knowledge. So that's the reason, language teaching or language education needs to be 100% related to culture, and to acquire culture. That's the reason this is the cultural competence is so important now and in the future. They have the product, you have the
Hmm.
all the three P's, and that's very important when you are going to make a curriculum development for a language course nowadays, because we also have the scientific methods, no, uh,
Hmm.
but which in education you name it, like instructional design. So instructional design is not only that the scientific method that wasn't invented in the last industrial revolution, and since we are close to the next one, so
Hmm.
people need to see language and language acquisition and cultural acquisition as a necessity uh, in the future. It's not if you want to be wise, or you want to have more culture or whatever. That doesn't have anything to do, because the world is changing to a very interconnected world between people, but also as people of individuals with a more powerful individuals. So culture, language, and creativity go by hand.
And that you pulled it together beautifully there. Culture, creativity, and language going hand in hand. And then you brought in the idea of the metahuman and so forth. Since there's so many cultures, your children, for example, are working within the culture of how they are interacting with the activities they do together, you said. How
Yes.
how do the how does education or how does literature? I mean, we look at you as an author. You do literature, you do educational texts, you do it in various languages and so forth. How do we help young people to learn and understand these cultures, bring in this imagination, but also channel it in a way, or do we need to channel it in order for them to be able to grow in this skill set that you think is needed so much for the future?
Well, I think the first thing you need to do is you to get to understand their culture, and how
Okay.
they interact. If you don't have a grasp of it, you don't have a chance. You need to, because at the end, when you have a culture that is so closely related to the language that is used to in the codes, you need to wade in. and in their minds is anything that is not has a path through that type of communication is boring, and that's the word they find. The word they find is boring because they are used to a different and fast-paced communication. But the thing is that if you do that initial homework, good content is always going to be good content. I mean, we need to be aware that good literature and anyway, nonfiction, fiction, is going always to be of interest of teens and kids if it is good. I mean, it doesn't matter if it was produced in the 13th century or right now. Uh, the important thing is that you make, the effort of going there and seeing it not like, you know, oh, these times are so bad. Our times were better. They spend like 80% in their room and they don't socialize. No, they socialize. Only the way they are doing it is different. And of course, it represents less physical activities and things like that. But at the same time, that's the way humanity is going. We are replacing jobs with machines since like the last 100 years, and we created the internet. Now, it's globalization. I will say like more than 40% of the world is already interconnected, or 50 or more, and the thing is that you need to see that not as they have a worse life. It's a different life. And humans, there, you're gonna mutate in a couple of years if we keep doing this, like Isaac Asimov said, or Arthur C. Clarke, and you see now science fiction becoming reality, and that's the way it is. So good content is what you need to expose your kids to, and also look for this type of products that use that entrance, that path to them through their language or to the way to do it, you know and then expose them to that content. And this has been doing, by the all the industries, performance, literature, or movies. They are changing too. They are changing their language, and also the platforms in which they show, because how kids change, how new generations are changing at a fast pace. Only because I think deeply that in our DNA is inside is written, to be metahumans. That we is part of our DNA be creative. It's part of our DNA created technology. It's part of our DNA to be technology dependent. We always has been. Only now there are more incredible advances in things. We rather write in a computer than in a time machine, or by hand, because it's easier and you can do things faster. And people always want accuracy and quickness, and that's what we are doing. We have been doing for the past 200 years, trying to be quicker and more accurate. And of course, the more we are, the more we physically and biologically are going to change, and also our society will change that way. And I think at the same time, the stand of the world right now is the same as after the invention of the printer, or after the theory of relativity from Einstein. It's a turbulent time because big knowledge jumps generate like the worst in humans. I mean, it's that way. It requires an amount of time to all settle down. Look at the Middle Ages. All that it was called what, the gray years, the gray
The dark
centuries,
ages, dark
the
ages,
dark
yeah.
ages. We are in a kind of a dark age now. And if you see the world how it is, and you remember I remember one thing that Carl Sagan said, and it was, that was a celebration of ignorance and in the world going on. That's only because people are paying more attention to non-qualified opinions that are funny or more shallow, in detriment of real knowledge and scientific facts. And that's, I can easily see it's because, when you have a lot of possibilities, when your work of your words don't require proof. Of course, I mean, idiocy is going to to win. Yeah, I call it the dictatorship of imbecility because of that.
Uh-huh.
And we need to fight it with knowledge, with good content, and also, and most important, is to get to know the real world right now. Because at the end, and being consequence, and in a fight, it's a fight. It's a fight. It's going to take time, because people nowadays, they have like a many that these half truths and the fake news, all that is in defiance of real knowledge and experience, you know.
Hmm.
Laughing about knowledge is a sport nowadays, and all these the earth flatterers, the flat earth believers. I mean, you have people, and very well-known people, that don't believe that climate change exists. I mean, it is,
Hmm.
and they have no proof, but it doesn't matter, you know. So the only way to go there is to have a core, like in fitness. And fitness, the core is what gives you and drives you and make you like run long distance and be healthy. And we need to be healthy intellectually, and that is language and culture and creativity. And what kids in many times, they don't know what to do every day, or solve problems, and in this dichotomical world, because the dichotomy is big now, digital and physical. It's a real, it's like a beam, it's split in two, and there are cords that bind both parts, and those need to be as good as they can be.
Hmm.
No.
Yeah, you were talking about, that real world, and you pulled it in there with the real world includes the connecting that you've just talked about here again. The ability to see what's real and to talk about it. And you started out by mentioning that to get a, if I can state it this way, a deeper sense of the reality of the world requires people to have exposure to get to know other languages and other cultures. Is this related then to the work of imagination, the work of this new development of human, which kind of, I don't know, not returns to the imagination that preceded language, but complements what's going on in the new reality?
Yeah, well, yeah, of course. I mean, if you really think about the role of imagination and how you can make it part of education, then you'll see it's even more important. And we tend to the education in the Western world, for example, 99% is that you have a military structure. No, you have a certain amount of time from different classes, and you try to adapt it so the medium kid. I mean, it's a cookie cutter system in which some of them do good and others do really bad or do
Hmm.
normal. And in many occasions it doesn't represent the real intelligence or the creativity of each kid, and
Hmm.
we have kids and people learn by seeing, by hearing, by talking, and also by writing. There are four. And of course, you can, for example, see in our education in our country, writing has gone down almost to, I mean, uh, way less than before. Before, we needed to write the lessons when the teacher was talking. Remember,
Yes, I do.
we wrote it down. So that was a way to get knowledge and to have it imprinted in your brain. Now we don't have that. I mean, in the less the teachers teach, the more they use things that are already pre-done, the less everybody is going to have a chance to acquire that knowledge. So we need to supply that with different strategies, because we are not going back to write things by hand. We are going forward. So we need
Hmm.
to plan for that forward, and that going forward is to deal with that problem with creativity, and to give time for them to be imaginative and to create things. And then you see all this, Finland and Norway, all these systems that they give them like a lot of space to be creative. And that is because they're compensating, because it's a different world, you know. They're,
Hmm.
yeah.
And the thing is, as an author, you do a tremendous amount of writing. You're writing all the time. You're always thinking of new concepts. You're always publishing something new. How Talk about that a little bit about the relationship of your writing to your commitment to imagination, but then also please, Andres, turn it to what happens or what you would like to see happen or what you're helping to have happen in the schools themselves to encourage the creativity and the creation of young people.
Okay, so basically, I write 60% of the time. I write literature, like like my work, and the other 40% I do literature for education or educational stuff, or I do also curriculum development, ideas on how to build up a program,
Hmm.
things like that, like more like scientific research for education. But when I write, I mean, in both of them, I always pick themes that I think they're going to be of interest and also that are controversial. I think there are not themes in literature. It's the way you treat them. You can teach kids about anything. I mean, all this the politically correctly view of the world, you are like showing them a world that doesn't exist, an adulterated one, in which they don't have the tools to, if they had that problem in their lives, how to deal with it. So if you hide, the bad stuff, they're never gonna see it coming. So you're not make
Hmm.
it's a disservice. Sorry, but that's the reason I treat a lot of things in like hatred, like racism, like xenophobia, like bullying and all the harsh stuff, death in my stories. And it's not that it's not, there are no morals in that story. It's simple. It's simply I want them to have fun, and at the same time see how for example, many characters they solve their problems in a very creative way, and and I write not only for the kids. I like Kay. I like from 5 year olds, 4 year olds to teenagers, and also for adults. And I'm almost always have this principle, which is uh, the habit of reading comes from your house and from your family. It is not built in the school. In the school, you have assignments, but it's not going to happen. It's at home, and when I write a book for like very small children until they are teenagers, I'm thinking in the adult that maybe is reading them that. The adult that introduced that book to the teenager, which is the
Mm.
greatest influence. For example, if I tell my son I like some book, he will read it. We
Uh-huh.
have that connection because he knows that almost always it will be something of interest. Maybe, of course, we had before I create the habit of reading him and my two sons. They read a lot. As a matter of fact, my fourth grader has a level of seventh grade in reading. Can
Wow.
you imagine that?
Yeah,
It's
he's
all
been
of the
reading a
charts.
lot. They're
Yeah.
reading a lot.
And my other son is the same. They were very very good in reading. I mean, they had always five since the FSAs since first grade to high school, and that's remarkable. Only because they read a lot. They read a lot, and they had opinions. When you read a lot, when you have more creativity because you have more points of reference. I mean, you have ways to solve creatively your problems because maybe you remember a character that was in a certain situation and how it was. So
Hmm.
reading is only a measure and a really good measure of reality in life, because you are exposed to different realities from different cultures and to different characters, which gives you a more deep a grasp of the world that surrounds you, and gives you also cosmo you are most cosmopolitan. No, cosmopolitan, can you say?
Uh-huh. Yes.
Yeah. So that's the most important part, and that's the reason I write. Uh, Thinking in that. It's not that I do it on purpose. It comes out that way,
Uh-huh.
and in relationship with our educational system. I think in a solution that using what we have, we will get like 1,000 times better results. And it's simple. It's creating centers where you can find the vocation of students at an early age. If you manage to do that, and then everything is going to make more sense to them. Why I'm learning this? It's the very reiterative questions from students around. Why do I need to do? I'm not going to use this ever in my life. You know, every
Hmm.
day for ages and ages, and in college too. But if you have a vocation, and the moment you see something, you're going to relate that to your vocation, and you know how you're going to use it more or less. So it gives you, a huge advantage in how to manage that knowledge that you're acquiring. And I would say in a medium place, not in a long way, in a medium way, it will change uh, the outcome of what kind of education or what kind of persons we have after school. And the principle is called the Beacon Project that I've been working on it for the past 5 years, and is like exposing kids to science and arts in a safe environment in which they have all the time to go from one to another. You know how much time and money you spend in, for example, one of your kids goes to violin and then to programming. You
Uh-huh.
know, you
Yeah.
need to pay for both.
Hmm.
You don't have much time for both. I mean, some kids go to three or four. No,
Yes.
imagine a center where you go and there are like circles of interest, like eight, nine. They're all related in the same environment, and your kid can float from one to another, and they make projects together by a project management center that your kid also can learn project management. Your kids also can learn financial education, which is so important. Nobody gives it in elementary. Your kid is in an environment in which bullying is not tolerated, and in which they have a good nutrition. And so if you manage that in each city, for example, or in each neighborhood or whatever,
Hmm.
it is a huge more percentage of success in finding the vocation of those students, on those kids or even teenagers, because they are going to be in contact with different sciences, different arts, and also a project management center and an integration center, which will be the connection between that center and the community. So you will know what, for example, that in your community they have problems. I don't know, with water management, and then you say what kind of problem they had not financing. Then you orchestrate a campaign for donations for the new, I only gave like an example. Maybe it's not the best one. And then you identify a problem, and then through your integration, you say to your project management center, hey, we need to help doing this, and maybe we need to do a campaign, you know,
Hmm.
about I don't know, a college or a little art school that needs our support. Then you take the people from marketing and campaigns, the circle of interest. We take the people from literature or creative writing. We take the programmers, and everything is put together, and the music people, and we do by ourselves a campaign or a commercial. So those kids could be in any of these circles of interest. They're gonna know how you project management for that, and they will know how idea is born and how it turns into reality. You know.
That Andres, there's so many things. When you were writing about some of the biographical stuff that you shared, you were talking about, creating social and educational projects to spread well-being in the community. And here you've just put together the whole experience of using imagination, language, and creativity, and this vision of students grasping what they are looking for in their lives to
Mhm.
share a very complete picture. Turning for a moment, if you would, to our listeners of this podcast, Specifically, what would you recommend they do, ask that they do, ask that they think about? Do you have something for them that you'd invite them to do?
Yeah, yeah. No, I would say that, and if you are an educator, if you are a teacher, try to find a time and a space every day you can to let your students go free and be creative, to be bored a little bit, and you can give it a theme or something, but in which they can create whatever without direction. Just say, you know, create something that amazed me, and you will get like surprised by what they do, and that way, when you give them free, reins of their imagination, you will get, I think, a better relationship with them, more trust, not only based in that you're your teacher, but in you know in a in a different way, in an intellectual way. So a path to your own intellectuality is to be creative and to use it freely, and basically, give them time, give them a space in which they can do literally what they imagine.
I love the idea of planning boredom in.
Yes,
That's brilliantly said. I think that that should go into every lesson plan, or at least a couple times a week. Plan boredom here
exactly.
in order to be able to tap into the creativity. Andres, you have so many powerful directions that you take people in your literature, in your educational texts, and your community work. And I'm really appreciative that you've shared a lot of links to not only yourself, but also to the work that you've done and some of the things that you recommend people take a look at. Thank you for sharing that. I put it up on my website, fluencyonline.com, so that people can access that and follow some of those pathways and see what you are up to, but also begin to create what they're up to. So thank you for that.
No, yeah, and it's very important also to listen to them. I would create. I mean, I do it with my kids. Part of the day, I say, "Tell me what you get, what you got," and it's like they hear all these memes, all this information, and many of it it's has a lowest common denominator. So they are like, for example, presentation of pseudoscience and superstition, and 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 people pass it as true. So what I do is say, what are you reading? And they know what I'm looking for, and they tell me, hey, is it true that, for example, I don't know, the Yeti they killed two people in Alaska? I mean, they are not, they don't, they say some more deep stuff now, and then I say, okay, let's address this. And sometimes I can, talk to them like for 15 minutes and show them the truth. I mean, if it's a truth there scientifically, or I take my time, and next time I address, some of their concerns, and I show them. And if I can, many occasions, from there it derives in an experiment, in a science experiment or in a social experiment. So you need to listen to your kids, and if the world change, if it's this celebration of ignorance, and they are exposed to this all pseudosciences and pseudo truths and darkness, then you need to know what they are like reading, and then you address it. And the thing is, every time you do it, not only they will trust you more because they're going to see the truth, they are going to develop tools to do it by themselves and navigate through this.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much for bringing that to a nice bow on top of that gift for everyone today. Really appreciate it, Andres. And thank you so much for everything you've shared. And so what's your next project?
Well, my next project, well, I'm writing one, two novels, and a couple of picture books and also I have an educational project I'm developing, and the Beacon project. I have a presentation next year to a big, charitable organization. And next time we can talk about it. Now I can't talk about that
Well,
because of, But yeah, those are my next projects.
great. Well, we'll look forward to then when you can reveal that future project. We'll indeed get you back and let you tell us all about it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah, it's the Beacon project. So I talked a little bit about it.
Yes, and we'll make sure that we can talk a lot more about it because it sounds very exciting. Andres, you're very exciting. Thank you so much for being with me today. I really appreciate our conversation.
Thank you for having me, Nora. It's an honor, and it's glad to be to be able to talk to friends about all these themes.
It is fun, isn't it? And let's go change that world. Thanks again, Andres. Take care now.
Thank you, Nora. Bye.
Bye bye.